Hello everyone. A very good morning to all of you present here for this today's program webinar on resource methodology, preparation and standardization of research tools. So on behalf of Lakhimpur Girls College and IQAC, Lakhimpur Girls College, Department of Education, we are here to welcome you for today's program. Now, I'm Nivedita Sharma, your co-host for today's program. Now I request our respected principal, Dr. Surojit Sir, to officially inaugurate the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Nivedita. And good morning to all of you. First of all, I would like to welcome all of you to this webinar organized by IQAC of Lakhimpur Girls College. In fact, it is lecture number 9 of this webinar series, and this lecture is organized by Department of Education, Lakhimpur Girls College. And I am glad to announce today we have with us Professor Mnashee Gogoi and Professor Mukut Hazarika, Department of Education, Dibrugarh University, and they will deliver a talk on research methodology, preparation and standardization of research tools. Research methodology is the scientific procedure or technique which is used to identify, select, process, and analyze the information about a topic. And it provides researchers, students, the necessary knowledge to undertake better research. And it contains various aspects of research process. So I think it will be very much needed for research scholars and students. I think from this talk, the participant will be benefited. And I would like to offer my sincere thanks, Professor Mnashee Gogoi and Professor Mukut Hazarika, for giving their valuable time with us. And we are very much grateful to you. And Professor Mnashee Gogoi was my classmate during my university time, and we are very much proud of her also. And with these few words, I would like to declare this session open. Thank you.
Good morning. On behalf of IQAC and Department of Education, Lakhimpur Girls College, I, Robin Kapati, HOD of Education Department, welcome our today's resource persons of Professor Mnashee Gogoi and Professor Mukut Hazarika, Department of Education, Dibrugarh University, and our principal, Dr. Surojit Sir, and all the participants to our today's webinar on the research methodology, preparation and standardization of research tools. All of you know that the situation of today is very critical due to COVID-19. So I request you to stay home and stay safe and follow the medical guidelines like use of masks, frequently washing your hands, and keep social distancing. Now I request Ms. Nivedita Sharma to introduce our honorable guest who are joined in this webinar session. Thank you.
Thank you, the respected principal, Dr. Bhuya sir, and HOD Department of Education, respected Robin Kakoti sir. So now I welcome all of you again for registering to our program for today, and hope you will enjoy today's session and it will be beneficial for your different career development and your research oriented work. So we will be trying to do our best in the next 2 hours. So now I'm going to give you a quick background of our respected resource persons. Uh, this is our privilege and honor to have different personalities who are working into the field of teaching, learning, and research. Professor Mnashee Gogoi ma'am and Professor Mukut Hazarika sir from Dibrugarh University. So now I am going to introduce Professor Mnashee Gogoi ma'am. She is currently designated as HOD Department of Education, Dibrugarh University. She is a live member of All India Association for Educational Research, Northeast India Education Society, Assam chapter of All India Association for Educational Research. She has completed two major projects under UGC and other recognized bodies and a few research projects. She has been working into the field of teaching, learning, guiding research scholars and different administrative works, as well as in the field of education and research for more than 20 years. And her area of interest where he is doing her works are measurement and evaluation in education, research methodology, science, and mathematics education. It is a very brief introduction, no doubt. So now, due to the convenience of time, now I request Professor Mnashee Gogoi ma'am to start and continue her session. So handing over to you, ma'am. Thank you once again for your valuable time with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Nivedita. Good morning to all of you. Respected Principal of Lakhimpur Girls College, Dr. Surajit Bhuya, of the Department of Education, Mr. Robin Kakoti, then respected Dr. Bhupen Setia, Coordinator of IQAC Cell, Lakhimpur Girls College, Coordinator of this session, Nivedita, esteemed members of the organizing committee, learned participants, and my dear student friends. Today, I am going to discuss with you tools and techniques of social science research. I'm going to discuss how to construct a meant by tools and techniques of research, and why do we need tools and techniques in research. I just want to mention the research process of student participants. There are many steps we follow in research process. These are, first is selection of the broad problem and defining it. Or hypothesis. Next step is methodology. It involves selection of research methods, then selection of sample, then selection of research design.
So already I mentioned the methodology, and next step is field work and data collection, where actually we need different tools and techniques of research to collect data. Next step of research is the analysis and interpretation of data, and conclusion. And last step is reporting the results and or the findings of the research. Thus, in research under methodology, the tools and techniques is an important component of research. Now, what is meant by tools and techniques of research? These are devices with which we collect data in research. In our day-to-day life, we use a meter scale to collect or to measure the length of an object, such as, for example, a piece of cloth, then say length and breadth of doors and windows of a room, to measure the length and branches of a classroom, etc. However, we use measuring tape to measure the length of a plot of land instead of a meter scale. Similarly, in research, to gather different information related to research object, we need to use different tools and techniques. For example, if I want to collect information regarding physical facilities in a school, I need to take help of a questionnaire or a checklist. If I want to know the achievement of students in English, I need to use an achievement test. If I want to study the favorableness or unfavorableness of a person towards a psychological object, for example, say introduction of credit-based system at the degree level in Assam. For this, we need to use an attitude scale. Moreover, in addition to that, we can also take interviews of students, parents, teachers to collect information or to study the opinion of them towards the same psychological object. Moreover, if I want to know say for example, how far the primary school teachers have knowledge about inclusive education, in that case, I need to take help of an awareness scale. Thus, there are different types of devices or the tools and techniques in research by which we need to collect them. Depending upon our purpose or objective, actually we need to select and construct different types of tools and techniques in research. Some of these tools and techniques are, say, questionnaire, checklist, observation, interview, rating scale, scorecard, then opinionary or attitude scale. These are also known as inquiry forms. However, some authors generalize all these inquiry forms to be questionnaire. Out of these inquiry forms, observation and interview are known as techniques of research, and all others are known as tools of research. Today, I have selected only one tool, that is questionnaire, and one technique, that is interview, for discussion because of time constraint. Now, these are my objectives for this session. You can see the points written on in the slide. After attending this session, you will be able to construct and administer questionnaire and interview schedule for research purpose. discuss the precautions to be taken in constructing and administering questionnaire and interview schedule, detect errors in a questionnaire and an interview schedule. So before going to discuss how to construct a questionnaire, what are the steps to be followed, and what are the principles to be followed in constructing a questionnaire and interview, I want to show some slides consisting of already prepared and standardized some tools. Not tools, actually questionnaire. Please observe this carefully. Can you identify any error? In this slide, I'm just going to discuss it later on, slightly later on. First, therefore, let us observe these slides, what is there in these slides. Can you see?
Yes, ma'am.
Please observe. Please, this is the end of this questionnaire. Again, you see, this is another questionnaire, which is mentioned as emotional intelligence inventory. It is because this is known as inventory because here the yes/no options are coded as 1 and 0. That means code as 1 and 0. Therefore, it is known as inventory. However, it is just like a questionnaire. Say the items of the questionnaire. I have not included all the items of this questionnaire. Only I have shown few here. Again, there is another inventory. This is study habit inventory. See the items of this inventory also, and also observe the options given against each of the item of this inventory. Always, frequently, sometimes, rarely, and never. I'm going to discuss all these points later on. Why, what should be the correct form, and do we need to modify these items or not? You can also see this slide in which these items are related to study habit. And you can also see that the last item is in the form of a question. However, all other items are written in the form of a statement. This is a standardized tool. However, it is having a minor maybe error. This is observed in the last statement, that is statement number 50. Only one is in the form of a question, all others are in the form of a statement. So now you observe the first two statements or items of this slide. First is type of school. Options are provincialized and private. And next is name of the school. Actually, we need to place the name of the school first, and then only we can ask for whether the school is provincialized or private. So we need to organize the items in a questionnaire in a proper way. Moreover, the options given is provincialized and private. However, in Assam or in other states, there are many types of schools, state government schools, again under government, whether it is under state government, whether it is under central government, etc., etc. Or there are ad hoc schools in Assam. So we need to provide all the options if possible, or we can mention others, or you can mention that within bracket that please mention the types of school. Then observe the next slide. In the first, again, statement, you can see the options given are Assamese medium of instruction, Assamese, English, Hindi. However, there are many other languages in which the students can appear in SSLC examination, say, for example, Bengali, Bodo, etc., etc. So we'll have to give all these options if possible, or otherwise we'll need to mention others, or like that. Again, already I think many of you have observed that there are many grammatical mistakes in the items given in the, as I have shown in the beginning of the these slides. I have shown the corrected form of all these questions. Again, observe the last item of this slide. Is the classroom has sufficient windows and doors? Say, for example, if in a classroom there are sufficient number of windows, however there is only one door, then how the respondent will respond to this question? Similarly, you can observe some of the items of this slide. I have taken from the first questionnaire. This is all about the physical facilities available in a school, in which also you see the yellow colored statement. The items related to that was, if yes, do you have a library in your school? If yes, is it separate from the school building? In place of that, the researcher could have included the question as whether the surrounding of the library is calm and quiet. It would have been much more better than is it separate from the school building. Similarly, here also you can add some other questions to make your study in-depth. For example, it is not enough to just ask how many books are available in the library. In place of that, what are the types of books available in the library, whether reference books are available in the library or not, or what are the other types of schools books are available in the library. You can ask or add to in the questionnaire to make your study in-depth. You can also observe the items of this slide, in which actually I have just corrected the language of the items, so you can modify in your own this type of grammatical mistakes. So I want to skip some of these slides because these are just the repetition of the points given in the earlier slides. Again, observe this slide. See the first one, first question. Then the statement number 12. You observe the options: doing work honestly, hard work, concentration, so that work completes. The options, length of the options given against this item is not same. In the option number C, the length of the option is very lengthy. And the wording is also, there is no parity. So we can replace this type of options by, say, honesty, hard work, and concentration. So from this discussion, it's clear that although questionnaire is considered to be one of the simplest tools in research, we must know, however, we must know how to construct to get the required information as well as authentic data. So now, therefore, what is a questionnaire? I don't think it needs much discussion on what is meant by a questionnaire. It is already written here, so you can read in your own. I don't think it needs much discussion on what is meant by questionnaire. So I come to the next point, that is steps followed in construction of a questionnaire. The first step is the setting the purpose. That means according to our purpose, we need to construct our questionnaire. If I want to collect facts, facts, then we need to take help of the questionnaire and say facts like physical facilities. Accordingly, we need to frame the questions for a questionnaire. Then the preparation. In the preparation stage, we need to study all the related reviews and all, such that we can frame questions properly. Then construction of the first draft. That means we need to collect number of items or questions for the questionnaire and we need to organize it properly. Next is self-evaluation, another step of the construction of the questionnaire. Already I have mentioned in my earlier, whenever I showed the earlier slides, that we need to evaluate all the items, including the grammatical mistakes, before administering the questionnaire. That is self-evaluation. Then we need to send it for external evaluation. That means we need to send it to some experts, and we need to wait for their suggestions, and accordingly we need to revise the earlier draft or first draft of the questionnaire. In that case, sometimes we need to eliminate some of the questions, maybe we need to change some of the questions, and one can also add new questions to the questionnaire. Then next step is the pre-test of the questionnaire. A pre-test or pilot study is very essential to check the suitability of the questions as a whole. Sometimes it may happen that if you framed items, no doubt, but the meaning of the items may not be clear to the respondents. So after on the pre-test, you can get all these information, whether all the items are clear, meaning whether the meanings of all the items are clear, or words clear to the participants or the respondents. Accordingly, you can modify the first draft. Therefore, that is nothing but the revision stage, and accordingly, after pre-test, you can revise the items of the draft questionnaire, and after that you can prepare the final draft. After addition, checking spellings, space for whether the spaces available for responses are appropriate or not, everything you can now check, and you can prepare the final draft. So this is all about the steps followed in construction of a questionnaire. Next is already I have mentioned that in preparation of any questionnaire, we need to follow certain principles, and also we need to know how to organize these items in a questionnaire. So for this, please observe the following questions. COVID-19, the pandemic that is engulfing the world, has no medicine till date to cure the disease. We need to prevent ourselves from the disease. What, in your opinion, are the preventive measures to avoid COVID-19? Whenever we write questions in a questionnaire, one must be very simple as well as precise in asking questions. No need to give this much explanations maybe before asking the question. So instead of that, we could have one could have included this question. What are the preventive measures for COVID-19? So this may serve the purpose of the earlier one single question without having any explanation. It can serve the purpose of that item. So whenever we frame the questions, one must be very simple, need to use very simple language, and must be very precise and straightforward. So again, you observe whether this first statement is visible or to you or not, I don't know. But what are you doing at present? Then what are the new programs introduced in your college? Mention 5 best practices carried out in your institution. How many general class students are studying in your college? If there are this type of wordings in a question, we need to define it properly. For example, what are you doing at present? New programs, based general. So we need to define this term, otherwise one may confuse. Say for example, new programs. In that case, one may confuse whether the new programs introduced in the institution, you're asking about that, or whether the new programs introduced in the education system itself or other. Similarly, the best practices. What are the best practices? We need to define the word best, otherwise the respondent may confuse. So we need to avoid this type of words in writing questions. That can be, these words actually misinterprets the meaning of the statement. So we need to define it properly, otherwise it may create confusion in responding to these questions. Again, observe the statements of this slide. How frequently do you visit the library? First statement is, how frequently do you visit the library? The word frequently. Do you get, next statement, do you get relief from the government? Often, frequently, sometimes, rarely, and never. So this type of, whenever we use this type of adverbs or qualitative adjectives, it always creates problem in responding to this type of questions. For example, if I use the word frequently, how frequently do you visit the library? The word frequently means for some person maybe twice in a, visiting the library twice in a week. For others maybe once in a week. For others maybe thrice in a week. So it creates problem in responding, or even if they respond, we may not be able to get actual data or required data or say authentic data. Similarly, in responding to the next question, do you get relief from the government? Often, frequently, sometimes. All these words may be, the meaning of these words may be different for different persons. So we need to avoid this type of, in writing or in framing items or questions for a questionnaire, like this type of descriptive adjectives or adverbs. Again, you say this. The statements are, do you not agree that our child should not have sent to English medium school? Do you not approve the idea that a college student should not be engaged in domestic affairs? Think about the meanings of this type of questions. It creates problem in understanding the meaning of this type of questions. Here, there are two negatives. We say in technical terms, the statements consisting of double negatives. And we need to avoid this type of double negatives in writing any question for a questionnaire. In place of that, we can remove the, at least in one position, from one position, we need to remove the word not. Say, for example, do you approve the idea that a college student should not be engaged in domestic affairs? Then the meaning is comparatively easy to understand. Again, say this, these options. Say gender, male oblique female. Nature of institution, government, provincialized, private. Religion, Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism. If you give options against any of the items of the questionnaire, one must be very careful. The options must be complete, otherwise one is confused. So for example, in case of gender, you have given only options male and female. However, now we know that there are transgender individuals. If they are the respondents, some of them are maybe transgender, then how they are going to respond to this question? So we'll have to give other options, say others, or you need to mention the appropriate options. However, if there are many options, you need to introduce, then it is better to mention others, and you need to give instruction, please mention within that. So that way we can minimize the error in writing the questions in a questionnaire. So we need to actually include in technical terms, we say we need to give adequate alternatives against each of the items of the questionnaire. Again, see these questions. Do the classrooms have sufficient number of windows and doors? Does your school library issue books to the students and teachers? This type of questions say, do you follow reservation policy for the SC, ST, OBC, and women in admission? In all these cases, if you see the last one, I'm going to give explanation to that. Does your school library issue books to the students and teachers? So, for example, in a particular school, there is a provision to issue books for only for the teachers, not for the students. Then how they will respond to this question. So in this type of cases, we need to actually frame, instead of one question, one can frame 2-3 questions if necessary. So for example, here we need to ask, does your school library issue books to the students? Again, I need to include another question, does your school library issue books to the teachers? Then there will be no confusion. And this type of questions, we say double-barrel questions. In technical term, it's a double-barrel questions, and we need to separate these type of questions into 2-3 questions. Observe these questions. Say, does your son like to go to school? Do you think that your child should have been sent to English medium school? Do you find Amul Taza tasty? Here, we assume, or the researcher actually assume that the respondent has a son, and that child is son. Therefore, this type of pre-assumed questions should be always avoided. In the first case, say, it was assumed that the respondent's child was studying in an English medium school. It was assumed. In the third case, it was assumed that the respondent uses Amul Taza every day. Therefore, in writing questions, this type of unwarranted assumptions or presuming questions should be always avoided. Again, you see the sum of the examples in this slide. It is not appropriate for the school authority to provide internet facility in the classroom. Don't you think that the colleges are unprepared to implement CBCS in degree level? These type of questions are known as leading questions, because in all these cases, the possibility to respond to this question is that yes. Don't you think that the colleges are unprepared to implement CBCS in degree level? The response will be yes. So we need to avoid this type of questions in the questionnaire. Then again, you say this example, who is the chairman of the management committee of your institution? Here the word chairman, why not the chairman can be replaced by they are women. Or actually, instead of this, we could have used chairperson, who is the chairperson of the management committee. So in that case only, we can say it is free from gender biasness. So at the time of framing questions, we need to take care of all this biasness. It may be related to language, it may be related to religion, it may be related to caste. We need to always avoid this type of use of these type of words in framing questions in a questionnaire. Again, see, observe these questions. Do you read newspapers? How many books are there in your library? Already I have mentioned that the information, if you want it in depth, and if you want to make your research in depth, then you will have to add more other questions to get complete information regarding these facilities. Moreover, there are some other points we need to take care of at the time of construction of a questionnaire. These are, if we wish to emphasize on some words or aspects or phrases, we need to underline it or highlight these points. When asking for rating or comparison, a point of reference is always necessary. For example, say if you want information about performance of student in a test, in that case, what is meant by the word average, above average, below average? For this, we need to mention the percentage that if the percentage of marks lies between, say, 50 to 70%, we say average. Above 70%, we say above average, like that. And these are known as point of reference. In many situations, we need to mention the point of reference to make the meaning of the question clear. Then questions are to be phrased in such a way that they are appropriate for all respondents. That means to whom we are going to administer this questionnaire, we must know their qualification, their age, their status, etc. And depending upon that, we need to frame the questions or phrase the questions in that way. Then one must be very systematic in giving the responses such that it can be quantified. Then we need to arrange the items logically and psychologically. Logically, already I have given one example that why we need to write the name of this, mention the name of the school first, and then one can ask for the whether it is under what are the medium or under whether it is under government or say province, whether it is a government, provincial, as a private school. We need to arrange it logically. Then psychologically means we need to always start from easy questions to the difficult one. Otherwise, they may not be interested to respond to the questions. If we just start with a very difficult question, they may not be interested to or not be motivated to respond to the questions. Therefore, the researcher should keep in mind while constructing a questionnaire the following points. Just like this, information level of the respondents, social acceptance of responses, or embarrassing questions. In that case, how to proceed. For this, I can show you this slide, and please go through this points. If the survey is related to a sensitive issue, like say smoking, then if you just go and ask or include a question, say, have you ever smoked cigarettes? The respondents may not give the respond to these type of questions, or even if he or she respond to these questions, the answer may be having some bias. So to avoid this situation, we need to frame the questions in such a way, or need to add few sentences such that we can get the required response directly. Say, for example, before going to ask this question, we can mention this. In past surveys, many persons have reported that at some point of time they have smoked cigarettes. This could have happened before adolescence, during adolescence, or as an adult. So if we, after this, if we add the question, have you ever smoked cigarettes? Then we give the correct response. Yes. In this case, although these sentences makes the questionnaire lengthy, even if it is very essential to add this type of statements before going to ask this type of question. And always, whenever you frame questions, you need to avoid abbreviations, as well as you need to follow proper sequence of questions. You need to think about the length of the questionnaire depending upon their age, educational level, etc., etc. And if you want thorough and in-depth information, then you'll have to add many more questions in the questionnaire, so that you can get complete response on the basis of that questionnaire. Then at the time of administration of the questionnaire, we need to write a covering letter consisting of this. I think all of you are familiar with that. We need to mention the importance of participants. Then we need to mention the purpose of the study. Then we need to give assurance about confidentiality of the responses given by them. Then if your research work is going on under under the sponsorship of some, or it is sponsored by an authority like, say, UGC, ICCR, or any other authority, then you'll have to mention that name of the sponsoring authority. And in some cases, you need to also mention the time within which they need to complete the questionnaire in the covering letter time. Just like this. Although it is all the above mentioned informations are not included, at least this sentence is there. Your responses will be kept confidential and will be used only for academic purpose. This type of statements are very essential to include in the covering part of the questionnaire. I think because of time constraint, I need to skip some of my slides. There are different formats of questionnaire. I think you're familiar. One is funnel format, in which questioning in this format proceeds from general to specific, from impersonal to personal, and from non-sensitive to sensitive. On the other hand, in inverted funnel format, we need to proceed from specific question to general question, and from personal to impersonal, and then from sensitive to non-sensitive. On the other hand, in the diamond format is a combination of funnel and inverted funnel format, and in which questions are progressed from specific to general and back to specific, from personal to impersonal and back to personal, and so on. So this is all about how to construct, or what are the steps to be followed in constructing a questionnaire. Whatever principle I have discussed in construction of a questionnaire, these principles are also applicable in case of constructing a schedule for interview. So now I want to just briefly discuss about the interview. I don't think you need much explanation about what is meant by interview, what are the characteristics of interview. However, I'm going to discuss what are the process involved in interview. First step of the process of interview is the preparation for the interview. Before going to take interview of some respondents, we need to first study their background, and we need to fix the time and place for the interview, as well as actually we need to take care of our own dress code. If possible, we need to dress in such a way such that we will be accepted by the respondents. In that case, actually it is very easy to develop rapport with the respondents. Otherwise, they may not be involved in the interview properly, or they will not be able to, or they may not be ready to respond to your questions in the interview. Therefore, at the time of execution of the interview, first and foremost condition is that you need to develop rapport with the participants or the interviewees or the respondents. For this, actually, we need to start with some informal conversation. And in that case, we can ask some general questions. And for this, actually, we need to know their background properly, such that it can help in developing rapport with the interview. Then the recording of the interview. However, at the time of execution, we need to follow certain other points or rules. This, whatever I have mentioned in my slide, are given by Tarney and Rob. These are ask only one question at a time, repeat a question if necessary, try to make sure that the subject understands the question, listen carefully to the subject's answers, observe the subject's facial expression, gestures, and tone of voice. Allow the subject sufficient time to answer the question, but do not let the interview drag. Avoid always suggesting answers to the question like this. For example, if you observe the TV interviews and the TVs, what you see, you have been suffering from flood for many years. Government does not act at right time. Reliefs and help are not provided properly. Your animals and crops are lost in flood. You have to take shelter in relief camps in unhygienic conditions. What is your comment on this? Here, the first part given the suggestions for the answer to this question included at the last. However, at the time of interview, one should not use this type of wordings or suggestive questions. In place of that, or instead of that, one could have asked, or they could have asked, say for example, for how many years is your village affected by flood? What are the steps taken by the government to control flood in your village till date? What type of problem are you facing in the relief camp? Have you lost any animal stock in flood crops? Are you getting any relief from governments or from any other organization? What, according to you, are the steps to be taken to control flood in your area? In place of that, if we just ask and give explanations before going to ask the actual question, then we actually this type of questions we say suggestive questions, and one should always avoid this type of suggestive questions. Otherwise, we will not be able to give the actual information from the respondents. Some other rules we need to follow at the time of interview are: do not show signs of surprise, shock, anger, or other emotions if unexpected answers are given. If, as an interviewer, if we showed all these sign of surprise or shock, then the respondents may stop responding to the questions. So we need to always avoid all these signs. Maintain a neutral attitude with respect to controversial issues during the interview. For example, in TV talk shows, we often see that the moderator or interviewer himself or herself gets irritated or become emotional and starts arguing with the person or interviewed. Sometimes the biasness of the moderator becomes very much apparent. You can observe in any talk show broadcast by TV channels. So at the time of interview, we need to avoid all this. Some other rules are: take note of answers that seems to be vague, ambiguous, or evasive. In the unstructured interview, as additional questions to follow up clues, you need to add some, that means questions, to get more information, or some additional clues to obtain more information. Always use some tact or skill in getting the subject back to an area of inquiry when he has stayed too far from the original questions. These are some of the rules or say principles we need to follow at the time of execution of an interview. There are some advantages of an interview, and I think these are very familiar to all of you. So I'm not going to discuss all this. I think I need to complete it in 2 minutes. But before going to conclude my discussion, I just want to mention some other points in which, what are the situations in which we need to take interview, what are the situations in which we need to use questionnaire. Okay. The first is the nature of investigation. If the study is about issues that respondents may be reluctant to discuss with an investigator, however, there are situations where better information about sensitive issues can be obtained by interview respondents. Then the geographical distributions of the population. If the respondents are scattered over a wide geographical area, researcher has no choice but to use questionnaire, as interviewing in these circumstances would be extremely expensive. Then the type of population. If the population is illiterate, very young or old, or say having some CWS and say having some physical or mental disabilities, in that case there may be no option but to take interview. So this is all about how to construct a questionnaire and interview, and in preparation of these slides I have taken help of these books. Thank you. With this, I conclude my discussion.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this very interactive and informative session. Our participants are continuously writing in the chat box that it was very beneficial for them and informative, and they are also someone writes it about amazing for their research work, helpful. Thank you so much, ma'am, for giving us such a wonderful informative presentation and lots of information. Although due to time convenience we have to compress our session, but ma'am, I heartily thank you